Before we kind of get into phase 3, I kind of missed it a little bit earlier on. As far as locations, you want to be trying to find that green stained water and or the warmer water. Those are where the bulk of the fish are going to congregate. You can catch fish in gin clear water, but they're very skittish and they don't seem to school up as much in that water. It's just and there's less bait in there. But I have caught I've caught fish in there. I certainly have not had banner days at all that I can recall fishing clear water at all.
Art,
yes.
You fish close to the transition from the brown to the clear water.
Yeah.
Right? You like transition or a little bit further?
Yeah. No, I have caught fish. Kind of where my boat is right on that transition, having baits in the mud side and baits in the green side. And I have caught fish on both, but I'll often catch more fish in the green side for sure. I don't think fish tolerate, there's there's a light brown mud, let's call it, that the fish can tolerate. But when it's in that rich, chocolatey, almost a red color, I don't think the fish can really... They do well in it. I don't know how well they can breathe because it's pretty turbid water. So now we're kind of moving into phase 3 of the spring period, where kind of anything from 50 foot of water to the shoreline is kind of game. We're kind of into that mid to upper 40s, let's say 45 to 50 degrees. The entire shoreline, again, depending on how the wind is distributing the water, can be in play. Grimsby to the Niagara Bar, usually around the end of April, early May. That section from Dalhousie to the Welland Canal, and then we got that big run of 40 to 60 foot water running out to the mouth of the Niagara River. Can often be the place to be. Myself, that's kind of when I'll start to put away the stick baits for the most part. Not because they won't work, but because a lot of these stick baits, they're just not made for salmon fishing in mind. For the most part, a lot of them are walleye, bass, pike style crankbaits. So, and I'm going to get back to this too about making your stick baits salmon worthy. Just trying to remember my train of thought. Yeah, so and the fishing gets better. We're into more salmon. Spoons tend to work really good. They're durable. They're easy to use. They're speed tolerant. So it becomes a pretty good spoon bite for that little period. We're kind of fishing 30 to 50 foot for that period. One bait that I didn't bring tonight, plugs like Lyman's, Salmon Candy, J-plugs, Dreamweaver has the Captain's plug as well. Those baits I will use sporadically, all year long, but I do start using them kind of when we get into 30 foot water. Usually like a 2 to a 5 color can be pretty good. Sometimes I'll put one on a short stretch off a downrigger early in the morning. There's something about that darting action that seems to work pretty good. So I will use them throughout the springtime and on and off throughout the summer, and then we get heavy again with them during stager season near the end of the year. And then we start to dabble with some flies as well, and even maybe cut bait. And I won't really load up with a lot of flasher flies this time of year, but I'll get them out sparingly. Maybe put one out on a diver or one out on a 100 copper or weighted steel or something if I feel the need. There's something about having a tractor in the water to kind of generate some curiosity from fish, or to draw some in from a ways. A couple patterns that I do very well with early in the spring that maybe I won't use as often throughout the summer. Easter egg and hog wild have been good for me in that shallow water. Then of course, just your standard, a green blade or a white blade with crushed glow tape, with there's a number of different green, white glow flies out there. I think this is a hypnotist maybe on here. And if you get a sunny day, something with some chrome and glow, with a big fin fly. I think this is the Dalhousie dynamite fly, but something pretty reflective like that is what I'll use then. Spin doctor or a paddle style, it doesn't necessarily matter, but 8 inch is the size that I would typically use then. And then, once we kind of start touching that 40, 50 foot water, I'll start using the standard number 1 or a 107 diver for most of those scenarios. Start getting into more of a 3 and 5 color lead core, maybe even to a 7 if we're trying to get down, around 30, 35 feet or so. And then we often get into some more numbers of coho. We get them sporadically in the shallow water, but not usually with any consistency. Once we kind of get into 50 or more into that late April stage, we start to see more coho. And I use a lot of the 6-inch Dodgers or Spin Doctors, a lot of red, orange, and chartreuse patterns. For flies, a lot of green, coppers, golds, sometimes a little bit of blue, and a lot of hot orange or red spoons too. This is an old Gibbs Gator that I've done well with for coho, but orange crush, mixed veggies, all those similar styles will, various patterns will work too. I do very well with these actually fished off a 2-3 color lead core. I never really get around to running these on the downriggers because the downriggers are usually fixed with king salmon stuff in mind. But usually a short lead core off the boards, maybe a diver as well, depending what's going on.
Right in the prop, right? Come right in the prop.
Yep, no, I know some guys do very well run them in the prop. So coho are a pretty curious fish. They're not really, they don't really have a lot of concern.
Coming into that April time, late April, how often do you fish during the crazy midge hatch?
Yeah, that midge hatch, it's not fun at all. And that kind of can vary year to year. Some years it's prolonged for, 2 or 3 weeks kind of. And some years it's a week or less, it seems sometimes. And there seems to be some areas on the lake where they can be really thick and maybe 10 miles down the shoreline, not nearly as much at all. But yeah, it's tough. And it's usually, on a nice calm day when you want to be out too. But yeah, you get all those disgusting flies just making a mess of things. So Fish USA took many years to develop their flagship series of trolling rods. They released them, I believe it was last year. If anyone's kind of looking for to upgrade maybe their downrigger rods, maybe for many years you were using a nice entry level like a TDR, a Daiwa Wilderness, Okuma Classic Pro. You can come out and check this out after as well. I've been an Okuma guy for many years, and I still own pretty much all Okuma rod and reels. But I've been very impressed with Penn's offerings the last couple of years. The Squall is a very good mid-range reel. It kind of falls in that same line where the Okuma Cold Waters is. Unbiased opinion, I think the Penn is a little bit of a nicer built reel. I've been able to use them a little bit on and off the last few years. Check them out. I think it's a nicer reel if somebody's looking to make a switch perhaps. And they've got different sizes too for different lines and different applications. And of course, once we kind of get into late April, early May, tons of lake trout start coming into play. They seem to pile up just on the edge of the bar. There can be some days too where we're catching. I've had days where we've caught like 10 lake trout to every king. They're just a nuisance. But, we're kind of fortunate to have them. Like people travel from all over the world to go up north just to catch a few lake trout. And here we are with a plethora of them. As far as brown trout goes, the brown trout, for most of the springtime, they tend to hang out in anywhere from like 20 to 50 foot water as that water is warming up. They're still there if you want to target them, but I think a lot of us just get fixated on fishing kings because they've arrived and it's what we waited all winter for. But perhaps maybe you had a good morning of salmon fishing and then they kind of petered off, with boat traffic or the sun comes up and it gets a little tougher. You can always slide back into that shallow 20 to 30 foot water and you can probably still pick off some brown trout that just haven't received a lot of pressure because the boats have driven over past them and they've kind of gone overlooked. Just a couple points, kind of as I get closer to wrapping up. A couple keys that are going to help you just be better anglers. Stay organized. This is just an empty box that I brought for demo purpose, but I've got a real nice Plano box that has a lot of terminal tackle in it, various different snap swivels, clips, snap weights, split rings, beads, everything in between that I might need to replace or do something on the water. Unless I'm with Carl on his boat, because I know he's got everything, it comes with me on my boat all the time, or if I'm a guest on somebody else's boat, just because I do not want to risk not having the proper terminal tackle to make adjustments. And that kind of brings me, we just hit the lights for a moment back there, just so we can hit that up. Don't skimp on terminal tackle. I know we invest lots of money into our boats, into all of our various equipment, and it can kind of seem like choosing, low grade fluorocarbon hooks, split rings, snap swivels to save a few bucks. These are your connecting points to, maybe the fish of a lifetime. And, if they fail, it's, leaves a bad feeling in your stomach. During the winter, periodically, I do pull out my spoons and my stick baits while I'm, watching a hockey game or whatever, and I just give them a quick look over. I'll admit, I'm not a real Nazi for sharpening hooks. I probably should be. If you have a hook file, good idea to go over your well used. If you got spoons or baits that see a lot of time in the water, pull them out, just check the edge of the points and make sure that they're good. Take a look at the split rings. Again, if it's a real popular spoon that you use a lot, make sure that the split ring is intact. Choose good fluorocarbon for all of your various leaders. On that note too, I was talking about stick baits and making them, I'll get to you, Frank. Making your stick baits, worthy for salmon and larger fish. I do make a point of upgrading many hooks that come with them. And I'm not necessarily making them bigger in size, I'm just making them stronger. I do upgrade them a lot to what's called 2 times strong hooks. So owners and Gamakatsus are what I use a lot of. There's a newer hook that's kind of come into play too. The last couple of years, I know a lot of my American tournament guys that I talk to a lot are using a brand called Adia hooks as well. They've got their Hercules hook, and that's one that I'm going to tie a couple on some meat rigs and some flies and just give them a test this season to see how they hold up personally in my eyes. But yeah, be careful. Get yourself a nice pair of split ring pliers just so you can make changes. Whether you're at home or on the water, you can make things proper. A nice pair of side cutters is nice too. If you ever get a badly hooked fish, kind of like how musky fishermen are, you can just cut the hook point off, or you just never know when you need to have them on the boat for any kind of a maintenance item. Yes, Frank?
2 questions. Your stick baits, notice you took the front treble off most of the boat. Yeah. Care to share why?
Yes, no, I actually forgot to mention that. I wasn't trying to hide it. Stick baits that come with 3 treble hooks on, I always take the front one off. I don't think it's necessary, and I think in the end it could be a little bit of a nuisance in the net as well. Sometimes kings will T-bone a bait where they'll kind of hit it like that, and then they get a mouthful of hooks in their face, and then they can get a lot of leverage to kind of twist and maneuver. Again, these baits are not made for salmon primarily. So I always remove the first hook if it comes with 3.
You've never gone to a single hook?
A couple times I have, and it does work too. And I learned that from some other tournament guys many years ago. We're just having 1 hook on the back of the bait and kind of fishing it in essence like a spoon. It It does work. I haven't really done that to a lot of my baits, but you know, it does work. I don't know if you lose many fish because you have one less treble hook on the bait, but it can work.
The other question was about your sea dart. They did
Yeah.
the orange, blue, and green. I think you have now.
Yeah. See.
What's the difference between those?
Yeah. Seaguar has, you know, a number, and not only Seaguar, but there's a number of different brands out there that have so many different types of labeled fluorocarbon line for different purposes. So this is actually red label mainline that I'll use a little bit. They also have their salmon trout STS lineup, and I've used that quite a bit, and they both perform well. Some fluorocarbon lines are designed for mainline fishing, more for bass fishing, but they can be used for leader material, but they're softer, so they're meant to be cast a lot easier. If you try to put, you know, leader line on a reel to cast, it's stiffer in construction, and it's just going to barf off your reel. It's not to be used for a main line.
That's the blue stuff.
Yeah, the blue stuff in particular is a leader line, and the red STS label, not this one, but the other one, is more for leaders. A line that I've been switching over to personally the last 5 years is Berkeley's Pro Spec fluorocarbon line. It's what I use now when I retie all my meat rigs or any of my flies, and I'm using it now for my Dipsy leaders. Just personal, unbiased. I really like that, the Pro Spec line. On that note too, you know, I've used Berkeley Big Game for my downriggers and planer board line for many years, and they also have a Pro Spec monofilament line that I've switched to, and I really like it. It just seems to hold up very well. Not that there's anything wrong with Big Game. It's been around for like 50 years or so, but it's just what I choose to use. They use it a lot out in BC and Alaska for their saltwater salmon fishing. Berkeley just hasn't promoted it very well in the Great Lakes market, so there's just not a lot of people that are aware of it. Just one little note on like ethics and angler courtesy and stuff like that, especially in the times of the year, you know, in the spring and again in stager season when we're fishing in shallow water. Try to be courteous. You know, it can get busy out there, lots of boats, you know, fish are flying everywhere, and sometimes it's easy to lose track of things. But try to be, you know, conscious of, you know, how you are spatially with other boats, what direction you're going, planer board placement, whether it's yours or if another guy has planer boards out. Try to give yourself enough way. There are certain areas of the lake too where a lot of boats will troll kind of the same line and the same directional pattern. You know, when we're fishing along the drop-off of the Niagara Bar, we're predominantly going east-west for the most part. You know, you might go north-south a little bit, you know, going up and down the drop to kind of get an idea where the fish are. Then kind of once you find a line where the fish are holding or where you're catching fish, you kind of stick with that. And just try to follow the trend so that there's not, you know, too much chaos out there. Sometimes you just can't avoid it. You know, it's a similar thing too when you're fishing the drop-off Toronto in the summertime. And again, when we're fishing like river mouths for stager season, you know, sometimes early in the morning, low light periods, not a good idea to load up on a lot of planer boards when there's a lot of boats zipping in and out. Usually you can do pretty good just using divers and riggers and keeping things close to the boat.
Unless you're American on a big boat, you can do whatever you want.
Yeah, well, there's Canadians that act like that too, so not. Just trying to see what else I had here for notes. Yeah, so just in closing, you know, the guys here at the club, you know, they've been doing a great job, you know, revitalizing things and bringing a lot of energy to the club. I strongly encourage everyone, you know, not just people in the room, but, you know, most, you know, casual recreational anglers to join a local fishing club, regardless where you live or what species you like. There's a lot of benefits to it, and the club benefits from it too. not everybody has time to sit on committees and attend all the meetings and stuff like that. I get it. We all have stuff going on. But, it goes a long way just to plunk down, your annual 20 or 50 bucks, whatever a club dues is. And it goes a long way. Most clubs, like this one and others, they have kids programs. They got conservation initiatives, stuff like that. Can't get on the water regularly if there's gaps, of a few weeks here and there where you can't fish. It's nice to know that you can send a text or a phone call to someone you trust who will bring you up to speed on the fishing conditions and locations and stuff like that. And then you can do the same in return when they need a favor down the road.
I have a little bit to add to that, Mark.
Go ahead.
That was a great talk, but I want to mention that Mark's being very modest. He hasn't even mentioned tonight that he actually goes out on people's boats with them to show them how to fish. He's been doing a great job of that, taking customers out, bringing a little bit of his own tackle and fishing with their tackle and showing them how they can cash in on being on the water with the time they have, with the stuff they have. He can also show them some of the advantages of maybe some of the other tackle. So this isn't a plug for Grimsby Tackle, this is a plug for Mark. Mark has been with me for almost 5 years, he said, and he's been a key employee at the store in that I think your line is,
Always happy to help.
he's always happy to help. And that has been a very good line, and again, this is a plug for Mark. He's happy to help, he's happy to come with you on your boat, he charges a very nominal fee, and you will learn more stuff than you will learn. And I can speak from experience. I started fishing Lake Ontario in 2016 with zero knowledge. I had a boat that I bought that was suitable for Lake Ontario, and I floundered from 2006 till 2011 when I took over the store and met fine gentlemen like Mark, Shane, and a plethora of other people who were just like, well, what are you doing? And then I found out I wasn't doing it. So spending time with a guy like Mark, talking to him in the store, he's there every day, taking him on your boat and paying him a couple of dollars will make your fishing go like this instead of like this. That's all I got to say.
Well, thank you. So if that is of interest, I wasn't going to bring it up, but if anyone is interested,
Good talk, Mark.
yeah, thank you. I'm happy to do it, and I'm only here doing it because I learned from so many people over the years. So if anyone is interested in perhaps doing a clinic with me on the water at some point in the season, Lake Ontario, Lake Erie, we can chat later. I'm pretty accessible at the store, or through the store's social media platforms or my personal ones. I got nowhere to hide. You can find me. So, yeah, never stop learning. There's lots of resources out there. We've got a YouTube channel, Grimsby Tackle YouTube, where Shane and I and some others have created some helpful video clips. Maybe they'll be useful to you. There's some good websites. Some of the websites aren't quite as active as they were, many years ago, but they still have good information. Spoon Pullers, Lake Ontario United, Great Lakes Angler, good resources to kill some time during the off season. You can go back on a lot of those websites and read fishing reports that are like 10, 15 years old, but you can kind of see, Port Dalhousie on May 5th, buddy was fishing 50 feet of water, he caught fish using this bait in this depth, whatever. So you can go back and rehash all that. So,
Hey, Mark, quick question.
yeah.
So probably in the last 5 years, artificial meat's been like 50 different kinds.
Yeah.
What's your take on artificial meat versus herring strips?
Yeah, good point. I barely even talked about fishing meat in this time of the year. In general, real meat versus plastic artificial meat. I've caught lots of fish on both. I'll always tend to go with real meat most of the time. Artificial is great if the fish are kind of on a meat bite, a slower program, but maybe you ran out of meat because you didn't bring a lot, or maybe you just don't want to burn through a lot, or maybe you can catch, you know, multiple fish on one piece of plastic. Sometimes you can only catch 1 or 2 fish on a real piece of meat. So, but you know, guys like Kevin with Deep Rig Tackle, King Strips, he's been developing some really cool colors lately. And I think there's a time and a place for some of those colors, especially glow-in-the-dark ones for low light periods or fishing deeper. So, but then there's some guys too. I know Anthony at the Big One Cut Bait, he's got formulas. He's got glow-in-the-dark real meat too. So there's a time and a place for that. But most of the time I'm just running natural, uncolored herring strips. And about using herring strips in the springtime, you can. I often don't unless it's a slow day and maybe we're, you know, putting a plan together for an upcoming tournament. I usually won't use meat in shallower than 30 feet of water. And again, it's not kind of once we get deeper than 50 feet that more flasher flies and cut bait come into play. But I know there was a group of guys in the 15, 20 years ago who I knew well and were very successful tournament fishermen who would run herring strips and spin doctors on almost every line from the middle of April through the rest of the season, and they cleaned up for a few years. So there you go. Yes.
With the ice on Lake Erie this year, a lot of us haven't experienced that. It's been a few years. What are we expecting for a delay? Is it a week, or is it 3 weeks, or is it all over the board?
Well, we'll see how the weather plays out in the next month or so. I think that the fishing along the shallow water on the Canadian side should last longer. Like last year, you know, we had no ice. And, you know, we were out trolling for browns at this time already last year. Salmon did come in shallow, but they weren't in that 20, 30 feet water for very long at all because the water had just warmed quickly. And, you know, before you knew it, we were in 50 feet. Then we were fishing the bar, you know, almost at the end of April. And I think it will be prolonged in that inside 50 feet. I hope the fishing is better than it has been the last few years from like that Jordan to Grimsby stretch. It's been extremely spotty to say the least, I think, since like 2018, 2019. You know, you get a pocket of fish here and there. You get a guy like Matt who pokes like a 23-pounder in the middle of April and randomly in Grimsby last year. But, yeah, we'll see. But I would like to think that we'll have good fishing on the Canadian. So what happens, for those that aren't really familiar, you know, when we got a year like this where Lake Ontario or Lake Erie is frozen, and then, you know, as it slowly thaws, you got ice cold water coming out of the Niagara River for most of April. And our inshore waters on the South Shore are warming up. Most of the fish will collect on our side because that ice water coming out of the river, we call it like the invisible fence. The salmon don't always want to cross it over into American waters. You know, on the other side, the far other side, you know, from Olcott to Rochester, they'll get their own inshore fishery like we will. But the fish aren't going to transition and move out as quickly with that ice water coming out of the river. Yes?
All the fish that you catch, like you're always mentioning length of the fish, 28, 30-inch fish.
Okay.
Oh, no, this is weight, I should say.
Yeah, weight.
You don't measure lengths or girths or anything like that?
I generally don't. No, I don't. I'll only measure a fish if I'm trying to meet like a 19, 20-inch minimum for a tournament, because that's sometimes what it is, or if I'm measuring a fish for like the contest that the club runs. But no, generally it's all, yeah, and I don't even weigh many fish either. So just unless if we're derby fishing and I need to know what the weight is.
If
So
I catch a little one, I want
yeah, well,
to catch any, but yeah, okay.
yep,
So it's weight.
yep. Any other questions? We got a little bit of time. Yeah.
When you're fishing under 10 feet of water, are you primarily with plugs?
Yeah, all shallow running stick baits, 10 feet or less generally. Maybe a spoon. Like, you know, another way that you can just get a spoon out, you know, on a planer board without any aid is just, I know some guys use a split shot. They'll put 1 or 2 split shots, you know, 8, 10 feet ahead of a spoon, just to kind of get it below the surface. So, and you shouldn't snag up then unless you do a really sharp turn.
I found with my brown trout fishing, I found the opposite. I found I'm getting more on spoons than I am on stick bait.
Yeah. No, it's whatever you use. Like they will catch, and it's just kind of whatever's in the water more, your percentage will be up. It does seem like, because I follow a lot of the American guys fishing brown trout, you know, many of them do use stick baits, but it seems like many of them, especially further east, like in that Oswego, Pulaski area, by the Salmon River, a lot of them use small spoons in the shallow water. They'll use some stick baits, but not nearly as many as we do. But
I attended that seminar across the border on summer browns,
yeah,
and they love them.
oh yeah,
But over here, like guys like Shane, he stops when? When did you stop, Shane? May?
Yeah, once May is here, they have to build more browns.
yeah.
I don't know anyone that's
Yeah,
fishing for us.
and I think too, you know, the difference is a couple things. They stock way more browns on the New York side of the lake than we do, so they have better localized populations. And a lot of the charter boats over the last many years have worked together, and they've got those browns pretty patterned, but they also have more to catch. And if their salmon fishing is slow, they'll tend to stay close to the shore, and they'll get browns for their guests. I think the mentality with a lot of our Canadian guys is if our salmon fishing is slow, we go for lake trout, or we go offshore in the summertime for rainbows and cohos.
Now,
We-
how far from the river is, on that side, is summertime brown fishing? Do you know?
Brown trout fishing over there?
Yeah.
I think it's like 40 to 80 feet for the most part. And we get,
How many, like is it a mile, 2-3 miles?
I think it just depends on where you are on the lake and how far the drop off is. But, you know, I've run into a few incidental browns in the summertime. I don't target them very much, not because I don't want to. I would love to pattern them more. It just comes down to time, you know, and often, you know, I'm always planning ahead to the next salmon tournament. I'm just trying to stay on top of the salmon bite that I just can't have the time to fish browns, or I'm fishing Lake Erie.
The U.S. boys really target water temperature for the browns.
Yeah, no, it is. And the key for brown trout in the summer is generally you want to find an area where the thermocline intersects the bottom. Brown trout are kind of like smallmouth bass. They're pretty structure oriented, so they really like a lot of rocky rubble area. And they like it where you can get, like, you know, I think 50 to 54 degrees kind of near the bottom is where the brown trout tend to hang out. But they will be in the middle of the column too. So yeah, one of the biggest brown trout, I think I shared it last year when I did the brown trout talk. I think it is officially the biggest brown trout that I've been a part of caught was the middle of July. It was 2009. It was during the salmon dance tournament, actually. Yeah. And we were fishing 70 to 80 feet of water just out front of Jordan. And we caught a 19-pound brown trout on a 7-color lead core and a spoon when we were salmon fishing. So my buddy Gavin reeled it in. It was a very quick, funny story. We had a couple gong shows during the day. I think the series was we lost a really good fish. We never saw it. And then we ended up snagging a garbage bag on the same rod, which we thought it was a good. No, it was an actual black garbage bag. And so that kind of chewed up a bit of time because we were kind of playing things carefully, thinking it was a good fish, a salmon. But anyway, it didn't happen. So then, shortly after, the lead core line starts screaming, and Gavin asked, he kind of went for the ride. He's like, do you want it? I said, no, you take it. So he proceeded to reel it in. And, my buddy Gavin, he loves fishing, but he doesn't really care about brown trout like I do. So I would have really liked that 19-pounder more than he did. But nonetheless, it was a cool fish.
Hey, just one more thing, just a plug for Grisby Tackle. If anyone's not familiar with the seminars they do at the shop, we never noticed that, go on Facebook, like Grisby Tackle. Shane and Mark do seminars at the shop all the time. So if no one's been to one, they do these at the shop. You can obviously shop while you're there as well. But there's some really good seminars at Grisby Tackle that are very informative.
Thank you, Tom. Yeah, we actually have one left. We do a handful throughout the winter months. Not this Friday, next Friday. Shane, and we also have a guest joining in with us, Mike Tarashi, who's a younger salmon guy. He kind of reminds me of me when I was 15 years ago or so. But Mike's been putting a lot of time on the water the last 10 years or so, and he's been pretty successful in some different events. So we've asked him to kind of join us, and We're going to talk about salmon specifically and how to stay on top of the hot bite throughout the season as the fish kind of move around different parts of the lake. Because Mike, you know, he's got a 19-foot line, and he travels from Niagara all the way to Port Hope, wherever the good fishing is, you know, on any given weekend throughout the summer. So that should be interesting to hear that. So next Friday, I think that's the 14th at 7 o'clock. That's all I got.
Thanks, Mark.
Okay, Mark, thanks a lot.